Big mistake. Savage mode. Republicans tried Jasmine Crockett, and yes, every second of this video proves exactly why that was the biggest mistake they could have ever made. Nobody in that room thought she'd be the one to flip the entire moment on its head. They saw a new face, a new voice, someone they assumed they could interrupt, talk over, box in, or frustrate into silence. That was the plan. That was the unspoken agreement on the other side of the aisle. Underestimate, overtalk, overpower. What they didn't calculate was preparation. They didn't calculate discipline, and they definitely didn't calculate the kind of mind that walks into a storm already knowing where the lightning is going to strike. Something about her presence felt quiet at first, almost too calm, too composed. The kind of calm that makes people misread it as weakness. The kind that fools them into thinking the lion is asleep. And that assumption, that one tiny assumption, is exactly where they lost. Because while they were preparing sarcasm, she was preparing facts. While they were preparing sound bites, she was preparing strategy. While they were preparing interruptions, she was preparing timing. And here's the part nobody expected. This wasn't going to be a normal exchange. This wasn't going to be a messy back and forth. This wasn't going to be a heated shouting match that fades into another forgettable clip. This was going to be precise, calculated, surgical. And the moment they opened their mouths to challenge her, they stepped right into the trap she had already built and walked away from. Most people think power is loud. They think it's big gestures, raised voices, and viral one-liners. But real power? It's measured. It's disciplined. It's in the pause before the words. It's in reading the room, the timing, the body language. And Jasmine Crockett walked into that space reading every inch of it. The tension, the egos, the smirks, the assumptions. The first interruption came fast, a dismissive tone, a sideways comment, a subtle attempt to make her feel out of place. Many before her would have snapped, or stuttered, or tried to force their way through. But she didn't. She waited a half-second longer than they expected. That pause, it wasn't confusion. It was control. And that small pause flipped the psychological advantage right back into her hands. People forget something important. Before politics, before headlines, before viral moments, she was an attorney. Courtrooms don't reward volume. They reward clarity. They reward preparation. They reward knowing the rules better than the people trying to bend them. And that's when it happened. The response wasn't emotional. It wasn't chaotic. It was clean, sharp, and layered with awareness. One sentence that didn't just answer the question, it exposed the question. It didn't just push back, it rewrote the direction of the entire conversation. You could see it happen in real time. Faces shifting, postures tightening, smiles disappearing. Because suddenly they realized, this wasn't someone they could rush. This wasn't someone they could fluster. This wasn't someone who came unprepared. And that realization, that was the real beginning of the end. Here's what made it even more dangerous for them. She wasn't trying to win a moment. She wasn't chasing a viral clip. She wasn't performing. She was dismantling assumptions. Every word she chose landed where it was supposed to. Every point she made forced reality back into the room. While they were trying to dramatize, she was grounding. While they were trying to distract, she was clarifying. And that clarity? It's terrifying to people who rely on confusion. Another voice jumped in, louder, sharper, the kind of tone meant to dominate, to reclaim the floor, to reassert control. But instead of shrinking, her energy shifted. The quiet turned into steel. Not loud, but undeniable. Her reply didn't just respond to him, it exposed the contradiction in what he had just said. Without insults, without theatrics, just logic, reality, truth delivered in a tone so calm, it almost felt like mercy. That's when the room knew. This was no longer about political parties. This was about competence versus chaos. And one by one, every rapid-fire attack collapsed the moment it hit her composure. Question after question came at her like arrows. She didn't dodge them. She caught them and handed them back, sharpened. That's rare. That's discipline. Because it takes something powerful to let someone show you exactly who they are, and then use their own words as the mirror. Here's the twist nobody saw coming. She wasn't just prepared for their questions, she was prepared for their reactions, their facial expressions, their timing, their attempts to pivot, their attempts to go viral off of her reaction. And the more they tried to create a moment at her expense, the more the moment became hers. Every interruption became fuel. Every smug remark became evidence. Every raised voice made her calm seem even more dominant. That contrast is what makes people lean closer to the screen without realizing they're doing it. That's when online, the comments started building, clips cut, moments shared, expressions slowed down, captions formed, not because she was loud, but because she was undeniable. Because for once, the noise didn't win. The truth did. And buried underneath everything happening in that moment was something far more powerful than politics. It was representation. It was excellence. It was discipline, wearing heels and a law degree and a mind built for pressure. And there was one line, one single, clean, deadly accurate line that made the entire room freeze in that half-second silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy. The kind that says she's right and everyone knows it. That single line didn't need applause. It didn't need a crowd reaction. It didn't need a soundtrack. It stood on its own. And that's when the narrative changed. Because it stopped being Republicans versus Democrat and started becoming unprepared versus prepared, noise versus knowledge, ego versus intelligence. Suddenly, even people who didn't agree with her politically had to respect the composure, the precision, the readiness. And respect is powerful. Fear is temporary. Anger is loud. But respect lasts. Now here's what makes this even more shocking. That wasn't the peak. That was just the setup. Because the final minutes, that's where the real mic drop happened. No insult, no grandstanding, just one final, perfectly timed statement that tied together every contradiction, every attempt, every failure to corner her. And when she finished speaking, no one rushed to reply. No clever comeback, no interruption, just that silence. The kind of silence that sounds like realization. The kind that says, we miscalculated her. This wasn't just a political win. It was a mental one, a strategic one, an emotional one. Because the biggest power move isn't screaming. It's making the room too quiet for anyone else to pretend they're in control. And the internet felt that too. That's why it kept spreading. That's why the clips kept circulating. That's why people rewatched it. Not for drama, but for dominance done differently. Now here's the part that should make you rethink everything you thought you knew about power. She never raised her voice. She never disrespected the room. She never played into chaos. And still, she won. That's preparation. That's discipline. That's what happens when someone walks into confrontation already knowing they aren't there to prove themselves to anyone. And that's why, in seconds, she ended something they thought would last all day. The real lesson wasn't political. It was personal. When you know who you are, when you know your facts, when you know your worth, noise doesn't shake you. Pressure doesn't break you. And underestimation becomes your greatest weapon. Because the biggest mistake they made wasn't talking. It was thinking she wasn't ready to answer. And she didn't just answer. She reminded them who they were dealing with. No shouting, no chaos, just mastery. And sometimes that's the loudest thing in the world.